Welcome to the N1 Fitness Podcast. I'm your host as always, Marcus Sadu, and in this episode, we're going to be chatting about how some folks seem to be able to eat whatever they want and still not gain weight. How's that possible? So everyone seemingly has a friend, a coworker, or a cousin that eats anything and everything in sight when you're around them. And there is a chance that these individuals have very fast metabolisms. Just like on the other end of things, there are people that have slower metabolisms, meaning genetics can be playing a role here. However, there are a bunch of other questions to ask yourself if you find that you're feeling discouraged or possibly even jealous or envious that some people seem to be able to eat a ton and still not gain weight. So one is, how much time are you actually spending with these people and how many meals are you actually seeing them eat? I remember I had a client a while back that went on vacation with some friends and she felt super discouraged because her friend that was fairly lean was really indulging in food, in her opinion. But you can't really extrapolate vacation eating to how someone eats in their everyday life, because that would be like saying, I can't believe how my friend makes any money because all they do is just lounge on the beach all day. Folks' eating and drinking habits typically shift a fair bit while they're on vacation because by definition, they're on vacation. Another example would be, let's say every time you go out with a specific friend to a restaurant, they always order the pasta and a dessert. Well, how often do you go out to dinner with this individual? Let's say, for argument's sake, it's once a week, which is a lot, right? It's likely not that often, but we'll use that as an example. If we eat 3 meals per day, that means that you're seeing 1 meal out of 21 for the entire week. So that's less than 5% of their entire diet statistically. If they eat pasta and dessert most times you see them, that doesn't actually mean that they eat pasta and dessert every day. If we applied that same thought process to going out for drinks with friends on a Friday and your buddy has, say, 6 beers every Friday, you don't then think he has 6 beers every single night of the week. You think, well, it's Friday and we're having a bunch of social pints. Now let's take this one step further because I think this is interesting to think about. If you have a partner and you live with them, even if you eat breakfast and dinner with them every single day, you don't know how they're eating 33% of their lives because you don't eat lunch together. I've had this happen with client couples that I've worked with before where the wife might say, I don't understand how my husband's overweight because we eat breakfast and dinner together and I make super healthful food. And lunch and daytime snacking can really add up. And again, breakfast and dinner are only 66% of someone's intake. So 33% of the time, who knows what somebody's eating if they eat a standard breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The last example I'll share with you guys on this is an overweight coworker that eats nothing but salads, right? All you see them eating is salads, and yet they're overweight. There might be a slightly slower metabolism at play here, that's possible. However, you know that this individual is likely not eating solely salads outside of work because their body composition is reflecting something completely different. Now, this isn't about judgment. The point here is that we just don't know how folks are truly eating day to day without being with them literally 24/7. So someone's body composition is actually the best reflection of their calorie intake and expenditure. Yes, there are some outliers that have fast metabolisms, but they're likely a lot more rare than we think. Also, folks with fast metabolisms typically move more. They're often quite active. Even the way someone talks and communicates can reveal this. Look at someone like Mr. Rodgers. Hopefully you remember Mr. Rodgers. Amazing documentary, by the way, one of my favorites. But if you look at how he talks and moves, everything is just ultra slow. This dude is super calm, super laid back, and just naturally does everything slowly. Then you can look at someone on the other end of the spectrum who's super animated. They talk with their hands. They're really expressive, even in their faces. They're always on the go, doing lots of things. There is a massive difference in calories burned between individuals like this, and we're not even talking about workouts here. Think about how much of a difference in calorie requirements that would be between these two individuals over the course of a lifetime. Hypothetically, these two people could have the same basic metabolism, but just the way that they interact on a daily basis and live their lives would change calorie requirements drastically. Everyone knows people that are just busybodies, right? They rarely sit still. They're always doing something and essentially just almost always moving. And even when they're relaxing, they're like hopping up from the couch, grabbing something from the kitchen, whatever. And then we know folks too that are just naturally more still. These folks are typically more so homebodies, and on the average, they move a lot less and just live a slower paced lifestyle. Now, if you drive your car more, you're going to need to fill up your gas tank more often. However, if it sits in the garage most of the time, you're not going to be using a whole lot of gas. There is no good or bad here. I just want to paint a clearer picture around what really plays into this whole metabolism and calorie intake thing, because I think that some folks feel like they drew the short end of the straw. However, there are just so many factors at play here. Another really important point to mention is that humans are just really bad at assessing and approximating calorie intake and expenditure. We're just not wired or built to do this accurately. So what usually happens is that folks who are underweight overestimate their calorie intake, and folks who are overweight tend to underestimate their calorie intake. There have been a bunch of studies on this. So sometimes I have my clients use a food diary as an intake awareness tool, and almost always, even the folks that I work with are surprised by how much more they're eating than they originally thought. And these are highly motivated, highly aware people by definition because they've sought me out and decided to work with me. Now, on the other hand, there is a large population of typically men, underweight or skinny men that want to put on muscle, and they lift weights and they say they're eating a ton, and then when you really break it down with these dudes, they're usually eating far less than they think. They're like, oh man, I'm so full all the time, and it's like, you had an average of 2,500 calories per day this week. No wonder why you're not putting on weight. Now, there are some people that are a little more accurate around their calorie intake, but not necessarily because they're actively counting their calories. They're probably just fairly in tune with hunger and satiation signals. These folks are usually in the middle, meaning they're not overweight or underweight, but typically of a healthful body weight, which totally makes sense. Now, an important psychological factor to be aware of on this topic, and essentially every topic, is that we have, how do I put this accurately? We have favorable memories. Meaning, let's say you have weight loss in the back of your mind as a goal. You're probably going to bias your memory towards healthful, lower calorie meal choices that you've made and sort of push to the side, or more often tend to forget higher calorie food decisions. We do this in relationships too. We seem to always remember all the great things we've done for other folks and seem to forget when we haven't taken that extra step or gone out of our way to support someone. This is not a character flaw, it's just the way that our brains are wired. It's interesting, I get all of my clients to fill out a questionnaire before they start working with me in order to be sure that we're the right fit for one another. And one of the questions is, what are you eating now? What's an example of a normal day? And sometimes I get answers that just don't add up. So someone has 40 pounds to lose, but in their questionnaire, an example of their daily intake is 3 eggs and oatmeal for breakfast, a salad with chicken breast for lunch, and a piece of fish with rice and vegetables for dinner. This is a prime example of that favorable memory in action, right? Because if this was how an individual ate on a daily basis, we wouldn't even be talking because they'd likely be killing it body composition wise, possibly even under eating, right? So this whole favorable memory thing is an important one when it comes to this topic too, because on the other end of the spectrum, someone who's underweight might be like, oh man, I ate so much today. And then if you actually got an accurate picture of their intake, it's like very normal calorie intake given their body size and daily activity. So this stuff is really relative to the individual. Someone with a really small appetite is going to think that less food is a lot more than someone with a large appetite. So the truth is that when we equate for things like calorie intake and calorie expenditure, the vast majority of folks are more similar than different when it comes to metabolisms. Yes, there are outliers, but they're just that, right? Outliers are the exception to the rule, and we love to magnify the outliers because it makes for an interesting story or conversation. Oh, Michael Jordan didn't make his high school basketball team, he was cut. Okay, well, he's an exception. He's fucking Michael Jordan. And also, this story isn't actually really true. Jordan didn't make the varsity team as a sophomore, meaning he was in grade 10 and he didn't quite make the senior team. So he played with the appropriate age folks versus playing up with the seniors. But stories like this get spread and they're like, Michael Jordan got cut. And it's like, well, not really. Now, I want to wrap up here with some good news, especially for the folks that think they fall into that normal or even slow metabolism category. I was overweight when I was younger, and I think it essentially gave me more incentive to eat healthier because my body composition reflected my calorie intake. And I wanted to be leaner, and therefore I needed to develop healthful eating skills at a younger age if I wanted to look the way that I wanted to look. On the other hand, if there's someone who can literally eat anything they want, they don't have that external or visual drive to eat more healthfully. If all of a sudden they become less active when they're older and start to put on weight, they don't have the skills in place to remedy that situation. And not only do they not have the skills, they've got like 40 or 50 years of poor habits working against them now. So it's that much harder for an individual like this to shift their lifestyle at that point in time because they're so used to just not having to give a second thought to their eating habits. So essentially what I'm saying is that maybe it's a blessing in disguise that you don't have the fastest metabolism on earth and what you eat actually reflects your body composition because it's just incentive to eat better. So you can frame things that way too. I hope you guys found this episode useful and it shed some light on some of the nuances of the situation around what might actually be going on when it seems as though some folks are eating whatever they want and not putting on weight. They're likely not eating as much as you think and or they might be moving more than you think. And what it really comes down to is we just don't know how someone truly eats on a daily basis unless we're spending 24/7 with them because these tiny little meal-to-meal snapshots are just not accurate of the whole picture. It's sort of like looking at someone's Instagram account and drawing conclusions about what their life is really like. Sure, they're doing whatever they're doing in their pics, but what are they doing for the other 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 30 seconds in the day? If you're interested in personalized one-on-one nutritional coaching and or workout design with me, you can head over to n1fitness.com/coaching or just click the link in the show notes below. Also, follow me on Instagram at N1Fitness and friend me up on Facebook at Marcus Sadu. I hope you guys found this episode useful. Thanks so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.